We've been talking about it now for about 2 weeks. We're gonna have two special guests on the call. I met them about 3 weeks ago, and they were like the only people I hung out with in Missouri, just because they're just such a magnetic, dynamic couple. And we had a great time hanging out in the infinity pool, smoking cigars, just talking about life. I learned a lot from them. Just an amazing, dynamic couple, and I was just really grateful that I met them. They're in our master agency, in the Pritchett hierarchy. They were the SFG Open winners, with about 45. How many apps did you guys have?
We had 45 64 the last week.
Yeah, 64 apps 1 week. You guys have taken 45 apps on one lead before. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you guys, they crush it with referrals. They were number one IUL producers in 2017. They really know what they're doing. I'm just excited for them to pour into us. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to you guys and just have you guys educate us on college funds, taking more apps, and how you guys are doing what you're doing just to be more profitable. So take it away, guys.
Thanks, Tim. And first of all, both of us, Julie and Eric, directed Tammy Smith in the Pritchett organization through Griff Martin. And grateful to be here. Thanks for having us on this morning. We're honored to be able to share with you guys what we do. But really, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Julie for a minute because, it really starts on the phone in the beginning. So I'm going to go ahead and let her talk for a minute about what we do on what she does on the phone prior to going into the home and getting and funding those referrals and so forth.
Thanks, sweetie. And thanks, Spence. Thanks, Tim. Thanks for having us on. It's pretty amazing that we actually look up to you a lot. We always say, my God, who's this guy? I got to turn him on to my sister who's the same age, just so she could see, how the power of persistence and determination. So that's exactly what you shine, I know, on your team and on us. So thanks for having us this morning. And good morning, everyone. I love this 8 a.m. call. Thanks for having us on. It certainly starts on the phones, you guys. As you know, you can't get into the home without getting on the phones, right? And Tim mentioned that lead where we wrote 45 apps in one home, or from one lead rather. And I go back to that because that one lead took me the full 5 weeks, if not more, because we were, that's another story, if not more, because I just could not get her to commit to a time, although she never told me, Tim, to stop calling. She just said, I can't talk right now, I'm busy. It was a holiday, it was Easter. She's like, I can't believe you're calling me on Easter weekend. I have a car full of kids, I can't talk right now. It was Saturday. I said, no problem, I'll call you next week. And Tim, that's the way our conversations went for weeks. And till finally, I called her one day and she said, I'm on my way to a funeral. I can't talk right now. And I said, I totally understand. I'm so sorry for your loss. And when I called her back, the whole time, Tim, I'm making notes of all these brief, few second conversations that we're having. And I'm keeping meticulous notes on what the conversations have been thus far. So when I called her back after that funeral, we both knew there was a why big enough for us to be there. So when I called her back, we booked that appointment immediately. When we got to her house, she stood us, she porched us, and I freaked out when after that, I'm like, how could she do this to me? I took it personally, right? But that's one thing that Eric has taught me too. Don't take it personally. Just call her back and tell her we're here. So that persistence and walking into that home, finally after all those weeks, it's what it takes. And believe it or not, you guys, when I'm on the phones, I know that the 5 R's are the last part of the real script in the home, but I keep those on my mind as I'm making that appointment and filling out my client qualification form, because that information is going to be super valuable for Eric and I, or when Eric goes in the home by himself, for Eric to arm him with that information, to start that rapport right away and really understand what he's walking into, because I made that appointment for him. So, referrals retirement, Rugrats, replacement, all that I'm collecting on the phones and recruitment, you know, depending on if they're an agent. We've talked to so many agents we've sat with as well. You never know. And I do keep meticulous notes because these advanced market clients, for example, they take a few visits, right? We go back when we deliver that policy, and we have all that information, so we never lose it. And it might be my PR marketing background that really keeps me and that information at the top of mind, always keeping track of what they said in the home. If I'm in the appointment, I'm taking meticulous notes, or after an appointment, Eric's giving me back the feedback to put into the client information. So for that policy delivery, we don't lose it amongst all our clients. We don't lose that information. So keeping notes is essential.
I think one of the other things I want to say about the phones and why it's so important is I think a lot of times we tend to gloss over the employment part of the client qualification form. Like, we don't really ask them what they do for a living. When I say we, I'm not really necessarily talking about us. I'm just talking in general, because we're trying to book an appointment fast or get them, booked, right? And that's really important to know what they do for a living, because you kind of know, when you know what they do for a living, you kind of know, like, okay, they're going to have a 401k plan. If they're a teacher, they're going to have a TRS plan. They're going to have different plans that you can roll over, or they're going to have certain types of coverage. So I think that's also something that is important to note when you're on the phone. But from there, are you good?
Yeah, no,
okay.
no, yeah.
So then from there we get to the home, and I think Tim, you invited us on the call to talk about IULs, to talk about children's policies, to talk about how we do that, right? That was kind of one of the things, and also referrals. So they all come in with the real system. So first of all, you're following the real system. You're trying to get to the kitchen table, right? So we get to the kitchen table, we start verifying information. Then once we get into the why, and we're really breaking down the why, when we're breaking down our why, we're talking about why we're here, right? One of the things I always like to bring up is when I'm in the why, or I'm transitioning out of the why, maybe to my role and purpose, kind of somewhere in there, I'm really dropping the seed of what we have. So what we have, meaning what kind of policies do we have for our family, which is the first cornerstone. So I'm going to start talking about my son, maybe, that has epilepsy, or I'm going to talk about, just our policies and what we have. And I always let people know that not only do we have mortgage protection, but we also have universal life policies, and we fund them. I always bring up, I say, and especially if I'm with a self-employed client, but I always say, Julie and I are self-employed, so we're really using this policy to fund our retirement. And when I bring that up, people's eyes perk a little bit. And I said, and you know what? The best thing about it is that if you fund this for your kids, you could literally fund it for 15 years and let it go. And it'll just keep growing for them. And you could really set your children up. And then, and after that, as we're transitioning into the role and purpose, I said, I'll show you that later. And I let it go. Like, I just drop a seed and I just let it go. It's not why I'm there. I'm there to take care of the client. So I kind of like let that go. And then I go through my presentation. We get into prices. Whenever I go into a home, I'm already assuming the sale. I'm assuming that I'm going to write 4 applications if there's 2 people, 2 accidentals, and 2 either term with return of premium. Sometimes we use mortgage protection and universal life. Sometimes we're going to wrap the whole thing into that one policy, and then I'm going to write a separate accidental. It just depends on the client, So that's kind of where we get into really introducing it. Then after I write the application on them, I let Julie know. I send her a text if she's not with me, and I let her know that, well, first of all, what I do is I talk to the client and I say, okay, look, we just wrote this app. Let's say it's a term app. It's going to get approved in a couple days. I'm going to be back in your area next week. Let's go ahead and book an appointment so we can review the application. So I'm already booking an appointment from an appointment. And my intention is to deliver that policy and to write the kids' policies if they don't write them after I get through with this part. So what I'm doing is I'm going ahead and I'm talking to them about the policy. I'm talking to them about the next appointment. Hey, are you available next Wednesday? I'm already here on a Wednesday. I run Monday, Wednesday a lot of times. Are you in San Antonio next Wednesday? Will you be available at the same time? Yeah, sure. I want to bring your policy back, and then and we can review your policy and go over it. So then after that, I go to,
hey Eric, do you mind if I just jump in, dude? You're killing it. This is good stuff. I just want just to highlight a couple things. So first things first, you go in the house, you're verifying right before you do your role and purpose, you drop your seed. That's the first step, right?
Yeah.
You drop a seed, you let them know, hey, listen, this is what I have for my family, for my kids. You drop that seed, and then you move on from it, right? Step two is you take the app in the house for the mortgage protection, and then the step three is you book an appointment from appointment.
Yes.
So you would say those are like the first three highlights so far.
Yeah.
You book an appointment from an appointment. All right, cool. So I just wanted to highlight that. So that's awesome, man. You're rocking and rolling.
Yeah. Now the appointment from the appointment is really important. I can't stress how important it is for you to deliver your policies. It's so important to not just put them out in the FedEx or the mail or I always, if a carrier has it where the policy is being delivered directly to the client, I always change that. So like originally when I was with America, they would deliver it direct to the client. I changed that. It comes to me now because there's any opportunity you can have to get in front of your client again is a sales opportunity. So, anyways, that's really key. That's very important because, and whenever I book an appointment from an appointment, Julie always takes that like, oh yeah, he's going to go write some more applications. Like that's
I count that as an appointment.
Yeah.
Always.
I mean, so, okay. So then at that point, so we've gone through that part, right? We've written the app, we've booked the other appointment. And then I turn to him and I say, let me show you that illustration on your son. Do you have a birth date?
That's how you start it?
Huh?
That's how you start it? You just after you deliver their policy and explain it, you just say, hey, let me show you this illustration for your grandson or your child.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So your confidence is like, that's awesome. So like, let me ask you this. If you guys are delivering a policy at a, like, what are the statistics that you'll write another app when you deliver that policy? If you're delivering 10 policies.
I would say we write another app usually about 70% of the time. We have another app to write.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So
that's great.
Okay, so then I just nonchalantly say, like, they think we're all done, we're good, and I'm like, you got a few minutes? I want to show you that illustration we talked about. And most of the time, on your son, and most of the time they're like, yeah, sure. So then what I do is I go, it's very easy. And if you want to have me on another call where I go into it and I do an illustration, I would have no problem with that. It wouldn't take very long to do. And I could bring it up on the screen for everybody and show them if they're not familiar with it. But National Life Group is what I use, the Flex Life 2 product. It's very easy to use. And so I just really just go in there and I say, oh, what's this birthday? And I put in the illustration. And then I say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to structure, depending on the age of the child. So if the child's like 1 or 2 years old, then I'll say, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to structure it for about 20 years, for you to pay into it for about 20 years. If they're 15, I might structure it for 15 years. I explain to them that my children have this same policy. I explain to them that we overfund the policy for our kids. And the whole idea is that when they get out of college and they have a job and they have a family, they're going to be able to take it over. But right now we're covering the policy for them. And I explained to them that the illustration, so when the illustration pops out, it illustrates at somewhere between 6 and 7%. And I break down the S&P 500 and all that. I kind of break down some of the things in the policy, but I show them how much cash value that they can build based on overfunding it. So the way I like to, and you wanted me to chat about funding a little bit. So there's a target premium and then there's a guideline annual. Okay. So the target premium is basically going to give the client a certain amount that goes into the insurance and then a little bit that goes into their basically their savings account that's going to build with compounding interest. So, and then there's the overfunding portion, which is a guideline annual. That's the maximum you could fund the policy without it becoming, we call it a MEC, which is a modified endowment contract, which then makes it taxable. So, and National Life won't let you MEC it. They will not let you overfund it. It won't happen. So what I do is I explain that to the client, so they right away they know that, okay, I'm not gonna have to pay any taxes on this money. They're not gonna, and we always tell them, Julie came up with this, we always tell them, look, I don't have a license to lose you money. I'm here to save you money, and we tell them that too. And so then we get into it, and I show them how they can overfund that policy and really just fund it for 15, 20 years and then let it sit and show them how it grows. And if we were to get into an illustration, I could show you that. But when you got a kid that's 2, 3 years old, and even if you're funding it $50 a month, and when you look at that, when that child is now in their 50s or 40s, you got a couple $100,000 in there. The compounding interest on that is pretty amazing. So you really need to, the part of the sale, to really make the sale work, is you got to show them the illustration. It can't be verbal. You can't say, hey, your child, people don't really like, it doesn't really hit them like the illustration. So you got to get them to the illustration.
And Tim, it resonates when we have the same policy on ourselves, and we can say, hey, the market's doing really great. So you see this average right now of 6%. Well, guess what it hit this year? It hit 12. Like, we can share that because we have the policy. So we're speaking truth, right? We're telling them, yeah, this is an average, but it could go up because it did this year. And I think that's really powerful, because what are the banks giving you, right? And that's what I like to talk about, is like the real, what do you have now in your savings? What's your savings account giving you? Nothing, So having that, owning that policy, we can say, this is what our kids made, and they've only had the policy for a few years. This is what we have, and we look forward to, pulling from that when we retire. Or if we have an issue that we need that money right away, we can pull that money right away. So being owners, obviously, is that first cornerstone. We can talk about that.
The other thing I would recommend to your team is to pick up the book, Wealth Beyond Wall Street. It's a great book, and it really highlights universal life. It talks about, and we talk about this to our clients, it talks about how Walt Disney borrowed from his universal life to build the first Disneyland park. It talks about Sears,
JCPenney,
doing the same thing. So none of these big businesses ever had the opportunity to get loans. Nobody wanted to give them loans, so they used their universal life policies to fund. So I let people know, like, look, you can build this for your kids, and then when they're in their 40s or 30s and they're buying their first home, they can borrow from themselves for their down payment and put it back in. Like, there's so many uses for a universal life policy that it just depends on the client and the direction that I go with what the best use is for them. It really just depends. But you asked me the other day, Tim, about how much I have clients funding the policy. Some of them fund it $25, $30, just to build something for their kids. And I have some that are funding at $300 a month. It just depends on what they want to accomplish with it.
Right. And that's where listening in the home is super essential, right? What are they trying to do? What do they have now? And just asking questions, because college savings is so important. We have a kid going to college right now. We share that. He's moving in next week.
Saturday.
We're
moving him into his dorm on Saturday.
So we're moving him in, and we're talking about, hey, he got all these scholarships, so his first year is paid, thank God, right? So if we had a 501c,
C3 or whatever,
CB or whatever, the college savings plan, he wouldn't even need it. He couldn't use it because he has enough money for college for this first year. Instead, that IUL that he's growing, it continues to grow, right? And say in 4 years, 5 years, or whatever, he wants to continue going to school, get his master's, get his PhD, whatever. That's for him. And we have to put those real world scenarios in, what you could do with that money to get to paint that picture in the home, because you want to paint that picture really clearly, like what we're using this for, what it's doing for us, and the power of it.
That's good. That's really good stuff. I want to just pause real quick. Rick or Frank, was there anything that you wanted to highlight there, or you wanted to ask them that you guys really wanted to hear today? Rick, Frank?
Yeah, but I just want to let them keep rolling. They're doing a good job. There's nothing else I would say.
Cool.
Yeah, and I mean, if we have time, I would love to just, if you guys are okay with it, like, I would love to have you share your screen. I can set it up so you guys can share your screen, and you can show us how you run an illustration. I think that's probably one of the intimidating things to a lot of people. They just don't know. So if we have time, I would love that.
I'm fine with that. I want to say one more thing, and I'm fine with that as long as you guys have time and you want to let me get on, and I can get on the National Life site and show you a couple things. I'd love to do that. Let me say one other thing. I also use the Universal Life in a reverse thinking. Okay, so let's say you go into the home and you got a 75-year-old father, and he's got diabetes. He got all kinds of stuff going on. He's got 5 whole life policies, that he's had forever, right? If you've been around here, you've come across that client, and you really can't do anything. But he says, I really want to leave my house to my son, but you can't get him any coverage. So what I do is I go with a little reverse thinking. I said, hey, and his son's like, let's say in his 40s. I said, why don't we look at doing a policy on your son, and why don't you fund it like, maximum or overfund it? You'll build enough cash value for your son, so when you do pass, that he'll have the money to pay the mortgage. The money will be in there. So I also use it in that capacity too, where I'm using it as a reverse, a reverse thinking to, especially if you come across somebody and you're only going to be able to write 25,000 guaranteed issue on them. It's going to be $300 a month or $250 a month. Why not take that $250 a month and put it in a Universal Life for their child, instead of it's gonna give them a lot more bang for their buck. They can still be the owners of the policy. They can access the money as long as they live, but they can make their child the beneficiary. They could be, well, not the beneficiary. The child would be the son would be the insured, but they could be the owner and the beneficiary, and then they can make somebody else the contingent. So if they do pass away, the son still has the policy. He can't really change it unless, they change it together, or until he passes, and then, he can change it, obviously. But it's pretty powerful to do that. And you may come out of the home with an application.
When I heard Eric do that, I was there with him, and this guy, he just really wanted his son, to have the house, and he wanted to give something, but he was old. He was in his 70s, 80s already, and he's like, it's going to be so expensive for me. And to see that, that logic come through, I'm like, yeah, that makes total sense, to get policy. So now we try to use that often if that's what the family wants, and they're just older and they can't get a policy on themselves. Why not get it on their beneficiaries if that's who they want to get them, to inherit the home or help with the mortgage.
That's good. That's good.
So we use it in many different capacities, but if you want, I can illustrate something on the screen. I'd be more than happy.
Yeah, man. Yeah, if you want to throw up a nice example, or if you would like to almost like pitch one of us, or just show us like what you would give somebody with like maybe an 8-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
Somebody in their.
Am I able to access? Hold on. Let me just hang on a minute. Let me see. Can I get on to? Let's see. I'm gonna try and get into National Life.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll just tell everybody, like, if you guys want, what one thing that you definitely should do, and this is one thing that Ayers had me do. He had me call National Life Group and speak to their sales department, and just talk to them about IULs. Just say, hey, listen, I'm a new agent. I'm new to IULs with Symmetry Financial Group. Can you educate me on the IUL Flex Life 2 for college funding for kids? How would you pitch it? And they'll walk you guys through that. They'll send you an illustration. They'll create an illustration for you and they'll send it to you, and they'll walk you through that. And they'll teach you guys everything you need to know about the illustration, funding, how it works. They'll sit on the phone with you for hours. I mean, Eric, Julie, how many times have you guys been on the phone with them for hours with them just educating you?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have been on the phone many times. I always recommend that to my new agents too, for my team. So I'm always, I always say that, but there's a couple things you need to know when you do call them. We're going to go through that on the illustration. I definitely want you to make some notes, because they will, one of the things that's really important about, hold on, let me just see. Can you see the screen, guys?
Yeah, we got it, man.
Okay, good. Okay, so you see the National Life screen here?
Yep.
All right, great. Oh yeah. So, well, when I go through the illustration, I'm going to run it through, but, so you know that pretty much all our policies are level policies, right? When we do a term policy, it's level. It pays out a certain death benefit if you pass away during that time. Well, with universal life, it could be drawn up as level, but it can also have what's called the B option, which is increasing. Now, I never ever do a level universal life policy. I always give them increasing. And what that means is they basically get the cash value and the death benefit. In a whole life policy, it's always level and it builds cash value at about 4.5% or whatever it is. Well, if that client cancels the policy, they can cash it out, right? They can take that cash value. Well, in this case, the client can get the cash and keep the policy. So whenever National Life, whenever you call the office there, the sales office, make sure you specify that you want it as an increasing, because they will automatically send it to you level and then it just won't make sense. Okay. So that was just my piece that I wanted to tell you about that. So,
Sweet.
all right. So we're going to go into the illustration. The illustration is really easy. Let's see. Now, if you're not, I'm going to just run Texas, but I've written Universal Life in Ohio. I've written Universal Life in California. I've written Universal Life in Nevada. I've written this policy in many different states because I'm licensed in about 7 different states. So the first step is the client information, right? So let's see here. So I don't always put the client's name in there, but I can, but you don't have to get the illustration. But what we're going to do is someone holler out a birth date for a child.
March 2nd, due 2010, 11.
2011. I get that?
Yep.
All right, so we got, now the thing about National Life, they will round up if you're within 6 months of your birth date, so just like some of the other carriers. But so that's an issue age of 7 years old. You're going to leave pretty much everything the same here as far as the rate class, verified standard, non-tobacco. Flex Life 2 will do a, you don't have to run there's no physical up to $1 million, okay? So you can actually write a policy up to $1 million in death benefit, and your client will not have to do a physical.
That's huge.
So yeah, that's very huge. That's big. Now the one thing is, if it's over 500,000, if it's over 500,000, I believe, or maybe it's 750, they do a phone interview. Now, the only reason why they would ask for a physical is if they see something on their record or, like just something. They run this weird report. I don't know all the details on it. You'd have to call and ask them. But they run a report where they look at your buying habits and stuff. I don't know how they get all that. But sometimes I've had clients that they have asked for a physical. But it's probably 10% of the time. Okay? All right. So now we're just going to leave the face amount at 100,000. But this is where the death benefit option gets interesting, right? You go from level to increasing, all right? So we're going to do that. And then we're going to change the premium mode from annual to monthly, because most people don't pay annually. They like to pay monthly. Now, right now, what's going to happen is it's going to give us the target premium. So the target premium for this age group, and I want you to just kind of look, we're going to look right down here on the left side where you see minimum premium, target premium, and guideline level. All right, so for a 7-year-old, the minimum premium per year is $356. So that means that $356 per year is what the child needs to. There you go. Julie's circling it for you.
Nice.
And then the guideline annual. So the maximum funding on this policy is going to be $1,056, right? So if we were going to, I usually like to set up the policies on a max funding unless the client tells me, hey, I can only fund this amount right now, but I want room to grow, you know, but most of the time I try and set it up for them just to max fund it. So max funding that policy, so where we would change, whoops, sorry about that. So max funding that policy, all we would do is we would go there and we would just hit guideline annual. Now, this is where people get a little stumped, okay? So let's say you want to set it up to only fund for a specified amount of time, okay? So what you're going to do is, if you're going to tell the client like, hey, let's fund this for the next 20 years, or let's fund this let's do the next 15 years. So what you're going to do is you're going to make a change right in here, right in there. And all you're going to do is you're going to, whoops, let's erase that. All you're going to do is you're going to click on that M. Whoops, hang on a minute, sorry. Let's make this a little larger. My hands are too big. There we go. You're going to take that M away, and you're just going to put 15 in there, okay? Because right now with that M there, it's going to fund indefinitely, all right? So, okay, so now we're going to fund it for 15 years. Now, the other thing you can do is you can actually set it up also hold on a minute. I just messed that up. Hang on, I did in the wrong spot. Sorry, guys. It's not under face amount. It's under funding premium. So we're going to set that up under premium to fund for 15 years. Okay. So now let's let it, you just got to give it a chance to recycle, and then we're going to go ahead and, why is this not, hold on a minute, something's not right here. I think we've been touching this thing too much. Just a minute, guys. Sorry.
You're fine, man.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm gonna have to go back in. I don't know what happened
I'm sure stuff like this happens all the time in the house.
here. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it happens.
And this is where I usually start
Talking.
Right. Yeah. We've all been there. We've all been there when the e-app's not working, and you're like, I hope this thing connects.
But the point that we want to look at here is that how easy it really is to do this. So
Yeah.
let me just, I'm going to get you guys in so you can see this illustration. We're going to.
Yeah, and the point I want to make here to the team, guys, is that I don't think anyone would do this on the call, but don't have your first time, don't make your first time you guys doing this in the home with a client. Definitely practice this at home with your own families, which I know some of you already have done that, but just make sure you're playing around with this stuff because, I know it's probably not that simple the first time you do it, but once you do it, I'm sure it's very smooth.
Why is it there? Where am I? Hold on a minute. Oh yeah. So it's the wrong, I was in the wrong spot again. All right. I don't know why it's doing this. It's not letting me run the reports. Yeah, it's doing unavailable. Hang on. Let's go to target premium. See if we get our calculation. Oh, I know why. Because of the years. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to fund it for 20. That's why it's giving me a problem. Why the heck? It's not letting me run the illustration for some reason. No, it's just based on target premium. No. Sorry,
So,
guys.
so guys, this is when you call the carrier.
All right, here we go. No, it's not running it. Sorry. Typically it says reports down here and we can run it, but I'm missing something and I'm under pressure. Hang on a minute. Let's go.
It's all good, man. Take your time. We got another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And we could always do a part 2 to this next Thursday.
Well, Tim, you know, when we were running the SFG Open, that's truly when I jumped into this, because you can't write 63 apps or 64 apps in a week and not really just be a zombie, like a sales zombie. I don't know what to call it, but I mean, I was running so many of these things and so many of these illustrations at one time that it did get easier. I was like, really, that's all it was, just a couple of clicks, and why do people think this is so hard? But you have to really get yourself in it too.
Yeah.
And I was in it. I honestly before then never really ran an illustration before until I had to.
How many appointments did you guys run that week?
How many what?
Appointments did you guys have on 60?
So you know what was interesting about that last week, or the last 2 weeks really, when we knew that we were in the top 10 as contenders, is it was so stressful that I felt like we had to run every single day. That was like, and when we didn't, I thought we were gonna lose. We're gonna lose. We're not doing anything today. All our appointments canceled, or we're not gonna run just for one appointment, or are we? So we were so conflicted during that contest that when we realized we were contenders, we took a walk. I remember, because we have a dog, so we take her out, and we're on this walk, and I thought, okay, we really have to strategize here. What is it gonna take to win this contest? Is not doing the same thing that we're doing. We're gonna have to do something different, and that something different was really strategizing with our current clients. And when I say strategizing, meaning we went all the way back to 12 months ago. So 1 year or more, and we went and we just, because we keep really thorough Excel spreadsheet track of our clients, and went back to the beginning of the year and just went down the list and started calling people. And that's what we did. I mean, it was truly our current clients, I would say, that really got us those 63 apps.
That's awesome. That's good. That's good. Just call
So here's what I can tell you guys. I just tried to run the illustration. It's not letting me move to the next window. It might be because I'm on the system, because it usually asks you for another piece. Yeah. So let me, what I think I can do is I think I can pull up an illustration. Just give me a moment. I just need to think about this, because I have some that I might be able to just pull up from email maybe.
Yeah, like a PDF saved?
Yeah, just let me think for a minute while Julie chats with you.
Yeah, if you can in the meantime, if you guys could chat about how you really take so many apps on one lead, and how you're really running your referral business.
Yeah, and we call her our client for life. Obviously, clients that we just do everything with, or they call us for everything rather. Excuse me. The one client that we wrote 45 apps with, I shared this on a call or with someone the other day. It was my birthday, August 2nd. Eric was going to take me out to get my nails done. and we're going specifically to get our nails done from a client, you know, so we're driving a little bit farther than I needed to do to get my nails done. But hey, this is our client. If we're going to spend our money, Tim, I mean, I've always been this way. I'm going to spend my money with someone that, you know, I know, because I'm a small business. So I would love for, you know, I like to give the same respect back to that small business. And so we went, took a drive down to this small town outside of Austin and got my nails. And I said, you know what, let's call our client for life. Let's call her up. I said, I would love to invite her to lunch on my birthday, Tim. You know, like this is the kind, it's so funny because I think about it and I say it out loud, but this is like really who I'd like to spend my birthday with, my husband and my favorite client. Why not? So, you know, the kids are in school. Let's go out to lunch. And, you know, we gave her a ring. She was busy, but she said, oh, don't tell me you're at our favorite place, because we've already taken her to lunch before. And so we said, yeah, we're going to head out that way. We were just thinking of you and wanted to invite you. So just that phone call, Tim, she said, she said, I want to talk to you guys anyway. You know, just keeping in contact with people and friends and clients that are important to you goes a long way, right? So she, you know, just from that conversation, she didn't make it out to lunch, but since then we've had 2 phone calls from her just reminding us, hey, I gave someone another business owner, because she's a business owner too. So she's, I gave another business owner your contact information. They should be calling you tomorrow. So she does not stop. I mean, I'm telling you, we hope that when we get to conference, we can add a couple more apps to that number of 45 right now. But that's what it takes, Tim. I mean, we get there and we're talking, and I don't think I really got into the point where that first appointment, after the weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of calling her and catching her at the wrong time, that first appointment, we got stood up and we finally got into the house. Someone had already beat me there. Someone had already beat us there, Tim. She had a policy on her table, and I said, what? How could, I mean, I had been calling you every single week and you didn't have time to talk to me, and someone came and wrote you a policy. Tim, she was engaged, and I knew she was engaged. I knew she was a foster mom. I knew she was a grandma. I knew all of this information from our brief conversations, our brief seconds on the phone, right? I knew so much about her that I told Eric I had to be there. I had to. I felt like I know this woman. I have to be there. It's going to be I said, she's going to cover her whole family. I just know it. And when we got there was a policy on the table that was incomplete. And she said, you know, someone came last week. They wrote me this policy, but they just called me and they need a signature. So Tim, someone had got there before us and wrote an incomplete app on just her. Just one app. So I said, they didn't write on your fiance? Nope, just me. I'm like, okay, well, she goes, anyway, I'm going to cancel it. I want to write with you guys. So that was the beginning of that conversation.
And literally, I just talked to her yesterday. She just referred us another client that needs some insurance help, some other pieces of insurance, but that always leads to life insurance because we always bring it back to life insurance. So we'll have another appointment from that 5A lead. But you see, can you guys see the illustration up on the screen?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So basically, the point that we built on the illustration, once we get to that point, then this is what's going to come out. Okay. This is what I was trying to get to. This is one that I did for a new agent I have in California who's just coming on, and he has some clients that are interested in universal life. So this is for a 14-year-old that I believe we're funding $100 a month. Cool. So I'm just going to kind of run through it real quick and show you the illustration. So the way I usually run through it with the client is I don't cover every page. There's 29 pages in here. But what I do is I go to the first page and I say, you know, the first thing with this policy is the best thing about it is it's going to cover death benefit. It's going to cover critical illness and critical injury right off the bat. So if your son gets sick, you know, in college or down the line, he has that critical illness already covered. Now that does come out of the death benefit, but it's there, it's available. And then the living too long piece of the puzzle is basically the cash value. It builds retirement. And then I just skip down, and I'll skip down to page 4, and I'll just kind of touch on the graph here that we have a $100,000 policy, and we got a death benefit of we have a death benefit of 100,000. We have a terminal illness rider that can go up to 80%. We have a chronic illness rider, and then we got the critical illness, critical injury rider that can go up to 80% of your death benefit, depending on the level of the injury. Okay. Now, something important to remember, and this is where your mortgage protection comes in and how powerful the term return of premium that you wrote. These riders are only available after 2 years of being in the policy. So if someone takes this policy and they want to have that critical illness available right away, you want to at least write them like a 10-year term, so they already have that immediately. Like with Americo, Mutual of Omaha, you know, all the carriers that have that rider included, unless you're going to go ahead and add it on as an additional, like with American Amicable or however you write your policies. Okay. So then I skip down, and in this case, it's actually a $90,000 face amount in this case at $103 per month. And I think the scenario here is he wanted me to show them a max funding of $100, a little over $100. So we weren't really going for face amount. We were just going for the best scenario funding at about $100. Okay. So then I skip down, and I mean, a lot of times I cover this with older folks, you know, people that I'm adults, but not really for kids. I don't cover this part every time, but it does break down the riders, the critical illness and critical injury riders. So, and it just breaks it down based on, you know, 50, 60, 65, and 70. Kind of, you know, tells you how much money you'll have at that time that you can access. Okay. Tim, you have any questions? Yeah.
No, I'm
Just
just
speak up. Okay.
I'm just taking it on. Rick, Frank, you guys have anything that's going through your mind that you want to ask?
Nope, just taking notes, brother.
Okay. Okay. So then we're going down through here. I don't really get into all this. I say, look, then this is what I tell them. This is exactly how I say. I say, now I'm going to skip down to the money, because you want to see how much cash value you're going to be able to build for your son. And then they're like, yeah. So then I go down to page, but I'll show you guys this, but I don't really touch on it. But this is basically a returns by strategy. So you can pick the strategy for your client, but what it automatically picks is the S&P 500 point-to-point growth rate. So what that means is for every anniversary, whatever the S&P 500 is giving at that time, that's what they're going to get. And this is just an overall average, but you can see right here, you have the average of, you know, the 5, 10, 15, and 20-year average. Okay. So overall, it does average about 7%. Now, the other thing I'll tell you is I've written some larger cases, and when you get in with those clients, they want to see some numbers. They're not just going to give you their money without seeing some numbers. So the other thing I do have, and if you needed it, I can get it for you, is I have history. I have about a 15-20 history on this policy, year to year. So you can see what the rates, the crediting strategy rates have been over the years. And overall, it averages is about 7, maybe a little more than 7%. So then we're going to skip down to the money. And all right, so we're looking at a current illustrated rate. That's really where you want to be focused, because that's really what your client is most likely going to be earning on an average. Okay. And in the first, let's get that off here. Okay. So what we're going to do is what I always do, the way I break it down is say, okay, so in the first 10 years, you're going to fund $12,400 over 10 years. And your cash value is going to be $12,006, and your death benefit will be 102. Okay. So I show them that in the first 10 years, they're going to just about earn all their money back if they fund it the way I'm suggesting. All right.
So Eric, this right here, this is where they're buying if they're buying.
Yeah. I mean, this is, yeah.
This part right here. This
is the visual right here.
Got it.
All right. So, and actually I don't have it stopping at any specified time. So, in this scenario, the child could obviously, after they get older, they could take it over just like the way I have my kids' policy. So, hang on, just hit that. All right. So after 20 years, you can see 24,800, and they have 38,000 in cash value, and they have 128,000 in death benefit. Okay, you see that after 20 years.
You have that increasing option, right? That's why that's going up.
Yep. So if they were to pass away at 33 years old, their client would, their beneficiary would receive 128,000. In a whole life policy, they would only receive the death benefit. They wouldn't receive the cash value also. But let's say in this scenario, we're going to go down, and we're going to go down to the next level. Let's say at 43 years old. Look at that. 37,200 has been put into the policy by paying $100 a month, and the cash value is 91,468. The death benefit is 209. Now at this point, let's say at 43 years old, this individual wants to buy a home. You know, let's say they want to help. You know, they want to go on a vacation. Whatever they want to do, they can pull that money out of that. That 91,000 is their money. Now, here's the thing you do need to understand, and that I always explain clients: if they pull the whole 91,000 out at once, it does become taxable. They have to take it out as a distribution. So we never want them just to pull the money out. We want them to take it as a distribution. Okay. But if they wanted to, they could take a distribution on it. And I know you got another call coming up, so I want to get to a couple points here. So look how this grows. So we're going to flip it down, because see, this 14-year-old kid, when it started, has the longevity of the policy. So look at that. At 63, at retirement age, paying $100 a month has been $62,000, and he's almost got $500,000 in cash value. He's got $419,000 with a $519,000 policy.
Wow, and he paid in $62,000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, over the years, it grows by compounding interest. And look, what if he didn't touch the money? What if he just kept paying that $100 a month and went up to age in his 70s at 74,000, and then have 859,000 in cash value? Now, this is assuming the rate is 6.87%. So here's the thing you need to understand about this policy. It goes from a 0%, it could go all the way down to a 0% floor, up to 12% cap. Last year, the policy earned 12%. So these numbers are only based on an average of 6.87%. It's basically going based on the S&P 500 average over 30 years. But like our policies, we overfund our policy. We fund our own retirement through this type of policy. We earned 12% on our policies last year. So when we're overfunding that, we're earning quite a bit on our money. So this could be also off. It could also be lower. Now, if the National Life has this the stipulation that if they earn 0%, they're going to credit them 2.75%. So you're never going to have under 2.75% on your money. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then let me just get down to, look how the compounding interest for a young person, $100 a month. I mean, this is just truly amazing what can happen to just a 14-year-old that just funded $100 a month for 60 years. They can build 1.7 million. Now, obviously they'll probably use some of that money, but if they don't use it, they can leave a legacy for their family.
Yeah.
Off of one little child's policy.
Yeah, man, this is good stuff. And for you guys, I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there. And one thing that I'm going to ask you guys to do is a lot of these, actually all of these questions, you can call National Life Group. There's a gentleman named there Pete, and who's the other guy there? There's another guy that's pretty good. There's Pete.
The guy I use is Jacob Peck.
Oh, Jacob is great. For you guys from AIL, Pete actually used to be in management at AIL, so it's funny. I got in a conversation with him, but he works for the sales desk now for National Life Group. So if you ask for Pete, he always likes to talk to former AIL agents. Jake is also phenomenal. So, I just want to thank you guys, Eric and Julie. You guys are awesome, an amazing example of just what great people are. So if you guys keep on being you. Congratulations on your last month at AO. How are you guys doing so far in the month for that?
We're good. We're good. Our team so far this week produced about, I want to say close to about 12,000 so far this week.
So on the month, what are you guys at? Like 20, 25, 30?
We're at about 20 in the first 2 weeks.
Sweet. Yeah.
We'll hit I mean, that's not the issue. We're waiting to see issue rates for last month. So once we get those, and then we'll see kind of where everything ends up. But I think we're doing well. And the attitude I've always had is we just got to keep recruiting. We got to keep going wide, and no matter what, it's going to happen. If we miss a month, we're going to bounce right back, and we'll be right back 3 months in a row.
Yeah, man. Well, what I want to do in the near future, I know we talked about it in Missouri, but for you guys on the call, I talked with them about going on a travel trip. I think we talked about going to Vegas. So if you guys don't have your Nevada license, grab those up. We can meet Julie and Eric in Las Vegas. We can go write some business and just hang out afterwards.
We'll be there in November.
Oh yeah, I love writing business in Vegas. That's a fun place to work.
I bet. Well, thank you.
I want to say congratulations to you. You're doing it. We will see you on the leaderboards. We love seeing you up there. So way to go.
Yeah. Well, it's all these guys on these calls.
I've been hearing a lot about Frank. I've been hearing Frank on the leaderboards all over the place. So great job, Frank, and keep doing it. And by all means, if anybody, Tim, you have my number. If you have a quick question, feel free to text me. Give me a call.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Love you guys. You guys are awesome. Appreciate everything you guys